I'd like, if I may, to share with you a short clip featuring John Cleese, poking fun at the viewer to make a point about extremism. The clip speaks for itself, and although the video quality is poor, the message is on point, and I believe has something to teach us about nonviolent communication. Have a look, and maybe we can compare notes after.
We've heard a lot about extremism recently, a nastier, harsher atmosphere everywhere, more abuse and bother boy behavior, less friendliness and tolerance and respect for opponents. All right, but what we never hear about extremism is its advantages. Well, the biggest advantage of extremism is that it makes you feel good because it provides you with enemies. Let me explain. The great thing about having enemies is that you can pretend that all the badness in the whole world is in your enemies and all the goodness in the whole world is in you. Attractive, isn't it? So, if you have a lot of anger and resentment in you anyway, and you therefore enjoy abusing people, then you can pretend that you're only doing it because these enemies of yours are such very bad persons. And that if it wasn't for them, you'd actually be good-natured and courteous and rational all the time. So, if you want to feel good, become an extremist. Okay, now you have a choice. If you join the hard left, they'll give you their list of authorized enemies. Almost all kinds of authority, especially the police, the city, Americans, judges, multinational corporations, public schools, furriers, newspaper owners, fox hunters, generals, castrators, and, of course, moderates. Or, if you'd rather be an extremist on the hard right, no problem, fine, you still get a lovely list of enemies, only they're different ones. Noisy minority groups, unions, Russia, weirdos, demonstrators, welfare sponges, meddlesome clergy, peaceniks, the BBC, strikers, social workers, communists, and, of course, moderates. And upstart actors. Now, once you're armed with one of these super lists of enemies, you can be as nasty as you like and yet feel your behaviors morally justified. So you can strut around abusing people and telling them you could eat them for breakfast and still think of yourself as a champion of the truth, a fighter for the greater good, and not the rather sad paranoid schizoid that you really are.
First off, full disclosure, I love Monty Python. I love how they speak truth to power, and even more when they point out uncomfortable truths about the rest of us, particularly yours truly. When I first saw the video, I thought this is violent grammar in the flesh. I mean, how do we respond when faced with actual human beings whose beliefs run completely counter to our own? As Cleese so eloquently points out, the human tendency is to judge, to see ourselves in competition with anyone who voices disagreement, and so put out great energy to defeat them, to make them our enemies. Did you catch that last verb? We make them into enemies. They don't magically become enemies. We make them enemies. We may be reacting to things they've done and said, but we make the decision, consciously or unconsciously, to make them to treat them as enemies. We've probably never even met them. They're likely simply nameless members of a group we disagree with. But we're good at making enemies. We've had lots of practice. And how do we expect them to respond to us? More than likely, as enemies. They feel attacked because we've attacked them. And here's the insidious part. There's no actual hard and fast evidence that they ever saw us as enemies until we made them. Now, if you find yourself thinking up lists of pure evil characters, hold on just a moment. You're probably thinking some people with bad beliefs are just mistaken or uneducated, but there are also people who are pure evil. They are my enemies. Okay, now what? Now you're justified. You're justified in treating them as enemies. You can attack them, shame them, call them names with impunity. That's right. You can treat them exactly as you expect them to treat you. Beat them to the punch. Well, what's the alternative? Let them walk all over you? I don't think so. Now, one of the two natural grammars is violence. Violent grammar trains us to look at the world in terms of opposites, us versus them. And that is violent grammar. Full stop. Us versus them offers only two choices. So when we reject the first, and even though we may not feel good, we feel completely justified in choosing the other choice. We can let them walk all over us, or we can fight back. It really doesn't matter what the two choices are. When we limit our choices, we engage in violent grammar. So maybe now you're thinking, well, geez, I don't want to be violent, but what else can I do? What's the alternative? Oh, I'm glad you asked. The alternative is not to do the opposite. It's to view our would-be enemies through the lens of needs and feelings. To wonder, what does this person need that compels them to believe as they do? And what am I feeling that my knee-jerk reaction is to treat them as enemies? What do I need?
So, if you have a lot of anger and resentment in you anyway, and you therefore enjoy abusing people, then you can pretend that you're only doing it because these enemies of yours are such very bad persons. And that if it wasn't for them, you'd actually be good-natured and courteous and rational all the time.
It feels good to win. It feels good to believe that we're right, that we're justified in ignoring the individual and reacting only to the category. It feels good because it is satisfying a need. What need? Justice? Sorry. Justice is not a need, at least not punitive justice. Marshall Rosenberg separated punitive from restorative justice. The former involves punishing wrongdoers. The latter, the hallmark of nonviolent grammar, seeks to heal relationships, even with, especially with, those whom we feel most comfortable making our enemies. Now, restorative justice may not be what you're personally after, but if the founder of nonviolent communication says that punitive justice is not actually a need, then it's at least worth pondering what other need might be activating, might be narrowing down our choices.
You can be as nasty as you like and yet feel your behaviors morally justified. So you can strut around abusing people and telling them you could eat them for breakfast and still think of yourself as a champion of the truth, a fighter for the greater good, and not the rather sad paranoid schizoid that you really are.
Now, I have to point out one thing about Cleese's conclusion. I know he's using humor to make his point, brilliantly, I might add. But you don't have to be a sad, paranoid schizoid to make an enemies list. You just have to utilize violent grammar.